I'm Andy with Competitive Cyclist, and this is the Pinarello Dyodo. I usually don't timestamp or date these reviews, but in this case, I'm making an exception. Why? Well, because at this moment, late March 2019, performance e-bikes are still pretty new, and there's a fair amount of controversy in certain circles about their use. So that makes this a bit of a complex review. I've got to address the usual stuff like tech and spec and carbon fiber layup and handling, ride quality, blah, 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 but I've also got to hit on the controversy, shoot down some arguments against e-bikes, lay out a few use cases, and then to top it all off, I've got to convince you to spend $8,000 on a bike you're not sure you may ever need or use for that matter. So, here we go. First off, let's just very simply talk about what the Pinarello Dyodo is. It's basically a 17-pound Pinarello Prince disc with SRAM Force Mavic wheels and an electric motor and battery that add about 10 pounds to the bike. The system's super clean. It's made by a company called eBike Motion, and you can also find it in the Villiers Hybrid, Bianchi Aria, Orbea Gain, and a few others. Here's how it works. There's a charging port down by the bottom bracket. The battery is fully charged after about 4 hours. Once you're juiced up, push the button on the top tube. It's got 3 settings. Green is low, orange is medium, and red is high. So what does that mean? Well, with the low setting, it feels like you're getting pushed along gently by one of your buddies. The orange or medium setting feels like getting a push from a Fast Cat 2, and the red setting feels like a pro's got his hand on your hip. The motor engages the second you move the pedals, and the best way I can describe the level of assist and how it feels is that you kind of get out of it what you put into it. It's not like having a throttle on a motorcycle. You have to pedal the bike, you have to shift gears, basically you have to ride it like you normally would, which became very apparent when I tried to ride the Dyodo up a 20% grade. You can't mash a gigantic gear on the steep stuff. It confuses the motor and causes it to kind of cut in and out, but as long as you're in the right gear on the steep climbs, you'll get a nice little boost. Now at the other end of the spectrum, the motor's limited to about 20 miles per hour. When the road levels out or kicks up slightly, just keep it in the big ring and rip away. It's hugely fun on lightly rolling courses with lots of false flats and punchy climbs in between. One thing though, at the upper end of the speed range, it can get a little punchy because the motor kicks on and off quickly. You can reset the engagement ferocity in the app, but even on the lightest setting, I'm not sure it's smooth enough to ride in close proximity to someone else's wheel. And when it comes to the battery, I couldn't get more than about 2 hours and around 2,000 feet of climbing out of it. But then again, I always had it on the high setting because it was just a blast. And you will too, so do yourself a favor and buy the extra battery. And that kind of brings me to the tipping point of my review, the part where we talk a little bit about the controversy surrounding e-bikes. And when I say controversy, it's a little more than dudes saying, bro, e-bikes suck. Because, why? Because you're not suffering? Because it's not as hard? I don't really get it, to be honest. Especially after spending a few weeks with the Dyodo. One of my first rides was a 2-hour sunset cruise, about 30 miles of rollers and steep climbs. Usually one of my hardest workouts, but not this time. I was able to take in the sights, get in my head a little and think about the bike and this review, and not feel totally gassed when I got home, or at least that's how I felt until I got on a regular bike the next day. As it turns out, I'd worked a lot harder than I thought, and I needed a recovery day. Honestly, it was one of the most enjoyable rides I've had all year, and because I wasn't in the red zone the whole time, all of the great use cases for the Dyodo started playing in my head. The most obvious are, the daily commuter who wants to beat traffic or reduce their carbon footprint. Then there's the family who lives too far to walk the kids to school, but too close to drive. And of course, there's the strong cyclist that wants to take a long ride with their non-cycling partner. And then there's me. And here's my use case. I had kids late in life. I'm 47, my daughter's 7, my son's 5. I want to ride with my son someday, like really ride, but it's going to be several years before he can keep up. unless I put him on an e-bike. And as I get older and he gets faster, well, we can trade. And in the process, we will extend the total number of years on either side that we can ride together and create lifelong memories. And, you know, I want to ride with my daughter too, but a lot of you know this, a lot of you don't. She was born with a congenital heart defect. She's fine. In fact, she's a little badass, and she gives her bro a run for his money. But endurance sports aren't really recommended for someone with her condition. So a bike like the Dyodo basically eliminates that concern, and I can't think of a better reason to buy an e-bike than that. If you have any questions about the Pinarello Dyodo, please give us a call or send an email to sales@competitivecyclist.com.